Have you ever gotten so mad that you blurted out some very inappropriate words, feeling like you had no control over it? I certainly have. And so has every single taxi driver in your town, I bet. It's as if swearing is processed differently in your brain. It feels more powerful, more raw. But why? Aren't swear words supposed to be just words that sometimes make us feel cool and edgy, and other times offend the more sensitive people? Or is there something far more powerful at play, extending into areas of life that we probably never even notice? Hello, my dear polyglots. This is Niki, and you are watching Natural Language. Today, we are going to discover the way swearing works behind the scenes. From how it can help regulate emotions and pain, increase strength and stamina, boost memory, and fucking hijack attention, to how it can help shape group dynamics, social perception, individual identity, and even community. So stick around because why, how, and when people swear might just be the cultural lesson you never knew you needed. Before we start, I gotta say this video is not for the faint of heart, since we couldn't possibly do justice to the irrepressible world of profanity without actually swearing. You may have already noticed that. But regardless of the state of your heart, make sure you subscribe to the channel because we've got something for all kinds of hearts. Most words go through the brain's left hemisphere, especially the areas responsible for logic and language syntax. But swear words are not your average polite speech. And so, they bypass the usual neural pathways and instead use pathways that are more primitive, more powerful, and run deeper. We're talking about the amygdala and the basal ganglia, parts of your brain responsible for fear, anger, and that split-second fight or flight reaction. These areas play a huge role in impulse, emotions, and survival, which is why swearing feels so raw. And at times, we find ourselves bursting out unspeakable words before our slow brain has time to filter them. In fact, some researchers have even suggested that swearing may be closer to instinct than to language. Brain imaging and neuropsychological studies on patients who have lost their language abilities due to traumatic brain injury show that they can still swear with astonishing fluency, like it's nobody's business. So it's more helpful to think of swearing as emotionally loaded language that sits closer to laughing or crying than to giving a presentation about the features of your company's latest product. All right, so swearing carries a lot of emotional weight, but that still doesn't explain why sometimes we go full sailor mode after getting a paper cut and then burst into tears, crying uncontrollably. Well, just me? Really? Guess, never mind then. The answer to our original question, though, is that swearing is cathartic, meaning it's a form of emotional release, like a pressure valve. It's quite literally a way to let off steam in order to be able to cope with emotions like stress, anger and rage, fear, frustration, and even good old existential dread and its BFF, powerlessness. This kind of swearing, the kind that we do even when no one else is watching, is called annoyance swearing. It's reflexive, automatic, and usually very satisfying. To demonstrate the cathartic effects of this type of swearing, scientists carried out cold pressure studies where participants held their hands in ice water while repeating either a swear word or a neutral word. The results? Swearing increased pain tolerance, raised pain thresholds, and made people perceive the pain as less intense. How, you might wonder? Well, remember the fight or flight reaction we talked about earlier? When that happens, your autonomic nervous system kicks in. Heart rate goes up, breathing gets faster, we see a spike in skin conductance levels, signs we are sweating, and hormones like adrenaline and cortisol flow. All of these variables help us feel less pain and endure more discomfort. And that isn't even the craziest part. You see, swearing doesn't just make pain more bearable, it could make you stronger.
Åh, ner med den! Ligg kvar Pia! Kämpa, kämpa!
This was kind of what Richard Stephens and his colleagues, who were a team of research psychologists, got some participants to do. Repeat a swear word while performing physical tasks like hand grip or cycling. And as you may have already guessed, strength and stamina actually increased among those participants who were using swear words. Not only do taboo words make you feel more powerful, they're also perceived as more powerful by your brain's processing system. Experimental psychology shows that taboo words grab more of your attention and are remembered better. And it kind of makes sense when you look at it through that fight or flight lens again. I mean, if your body is feeling like, hell yeah, we're going to war, motherfucker, then it's totally rational, even necessary that your attention sharpens. I mean, if swearing is like a battle cry to your body and mind, then of course your brain is going to guarantee that you stay alert. And if that was not convincing enough, explain this to me. Why is it that kids remember the curse words that their parents yelled when they stubbed a toe, but not what they said at breakfast? Exactly. Even parrot owners complain that despite their best efforts to teach their pets, polite words, their birdies end up learning the curse words and the swear words better than the words actually intended for them. In fact, swear words command so much attention that they can interfere with other tasks as well. You know those tests where you have to say the color of the word, but not the word itself? They're called Stroop tests, and you've probably seen one before. If you haven't, that means you haven't seen the other videos on our channel, so go check them out. Actually, let's do a little experiment. Say the color of this text out loud. Now this one, and now this. This last one should have taken you a little bit longer. At least that's what researchers found out. In Stroop tests, swear words tend to make people more distracted and slower. And our beloved scientists have come up with yet another fancy term to describe this attribute: cognitive salience. When a word or an image has high cognitive salience, it demands more attention and deeper processing. Fun facts. Actually, let me lead with a semi fun question. Try translating your favorite swear word into another language, preferably one that you know. Does it hit the same? Odds are it won't. But let us know in the comment section anyway. And in the meantime, let me tell you why. Among multilinguals, unless they've experienced language attrition in their first language, meaning their proficiency has decreased over time, swear words in their mother tongue have higher cognitive salience than swear words in languages acquired later in life. Why? Because emotional memories, especially childhood memories, and cultural learnings are encoded in your native language. You see, swear words aren't just words. They are turbocharged with forces coming all the way from biology, history, and our own emotions. So far, we've talked about the effects of swearing on the swearer. But how about the effect it has on others, or the swearees, if you will? Let's talk about social swearing, where the F bomb is dropped in the name of friendship, friction, and fun. But first things first, you might find it interesting that scientists believe social swearing involves more higher order brain processing and is intrinsically less emotional than annoyance swearing. This kind of swearing can serve as a powerful social signaling tool. It can alert others to our internal states, which might potentially stop unwanted behavior or act as a response to injustice or unfair treatment. In other words, sometimes we fire off streams of profanity to defend ourselves or our loved one. And if it's used to guard and defend, it's sure as hell just as sharp when used to offend. Yes, we're talking about the ugly. Swearing can definitely be aggressive. It could be used to insult, dominate, discriminate, exclude, or express hostility. Think slurs, name calling, verbal abuse, etc. And as we've seen in previous sections, our brain and body take swearing very seriously. So, when used with harmful intentions, it could indeed hurt and sometimes cause serious interpersonal damage. Although it's important to point out it's not all about intentions, it's also about context. A sudden curse can make the speaker seem less intelligent, less trustworthy, or even hostile. The less intelligent part, by the way, is very much not true. People who swear a lot aren't less intelligent or less articulate. Quite the contrary. Studies show that swearing fluency is positively correlated with overall verbal fluency. But because swear words often come from cultural taboos, they're seen as violating social expectations. So, this isn't just about the words themselves, it's about breaking social expectations. In polite company or formal settings, swearing can cross a boundary, and that element of shock is what gives it power. Let's look at a beautiful example of this from one of the best movies ever.
And the bear says to the rabbit, hey, do you ever have a problem with the shit sticking to your fur? And the rabbit finishes shitting, and he says, nope, I never do. Why? And the bear says, fan-fucking-tastic! And he grabs the rabbit behind the ears and...
This is what researchers call the expectancy violation effect. When someone swears in a context where it's unexpected, they're often judged more harshly. So, for example, in workplace studies, swearing can be seen as a way to show urgency and authority, but also as unprofessional and abusive, depending on, you guessed it, the context. So, swearing could be good or bad for our image depending on how and when it's used, but you might still be wondering, why do some people get praised for swearing while others get punished under equal circumstances? And that, my highly inquisitive friend, is because swearing is never just about language. It's also about power, class, gender, and cultural norms, perception, and even personal identity. And yup, those dynamics shift based on who you are. For example, studies show that women are often judged more harshly than men for using foul language. Historically, men have sworn more than women because swearing was and still kind of is seen as unladylike. But ladies, worry not, we are quickly closing the gap. In fact, in some settings, like among older women in nursing homes, those differences are disappearing. So let's take a moment to express our sincere gratitude to all the brave grandmothers out there paving the road for all of us so we too could enjoy the cathartic and social opportunities we call swearing. And here's a silver lining. Because polite speech is more tightly policed among women, swearing can be a strong intimacy signal and a form of in group bonding for us. But it's not just women who enjoy the in group bonding benefits of swearing. And so, since much of our everyday swearing is pro social, so among friends, colleagues, or teammates, it often signals intimacy, trust, and solidarity, and can act as a verbal glue, bonding people through shared norms or even shared rebellion. To give a case in point, in a New Zealand soap factory studied by researchers, collective swearing strengthened their sense of solidarity. Newcomers had to earn their place in the group by adopting its informal language, profanity included. And this factory is by no means an outlier when it comes to swearing frequency and volume. In fact, swearing seems to be more common in certain social and occupational groups, like soldiers, police officers, athletes, and communities experiencing prolonged political and economic instability. So it seems in high stress environments, people use swearing both as a form of therapy to regulate their emotions and as a way to express a shared identity. Teenagers and online communities are among other groups that employ swearing as a community badge. When used sparingly and strategically, swearing can even make someone seem more credible or persuasive. In one study, people judged speakers who swore mildly as more authentic and passionate. This was because in that specific context, swearing signaled authenticity and emotional intensity. So, yes, you could throw a few four-letter words here and there next time you give a presentation. Even politicians sometimes drop a well-timed expletive. It wakes people up. But keep in mind, It only works if the swearing feels genuine and not forced. Swearing isn't just about rudeness, it's about expression, relief, identity, and power. And it's more than just language. It can make you stronger, calm you down, bond you with your friends, prevent a fight, or, yes, start a fight. And let us know in the comment section, what does swearing mean to you? Bad habit, emotional release, or something else entirely? And if this episode made you think differently about swearing, give it a like, subscribe, and maybe share it with someone who drops the occasional F.